I'm here with Ramiro Levy, who is the coordinator and co-founder of Cidade Ativa in São Paulo, Brazil. And Ramiro, we were just talking about your evolving collaboration with HealthBridge, and we're very interested in potentially collaborating as well in some of your work there and getting your help in some of the work that we're doing. Can you tell us a little bit about your work that you're doing right now?
Yeah, well, Cidade Ativa was formed in 2014, and we are mostly urban designers and architects, most urban designers and architects, and we work through research and projects on the spatial urban planning, let's say, and urban design. But we also address change and behavior change and health issues, and through education, through lectures, through community engagement. So we try to relate urban space and people's behavior and how this relates and shapes the cities we live.
That sounds fascinating.
That's one of the main, that's the main objective of the organization. We are a non-profit from São Paulo.
So one of the things that I found most interesting about your work that might be useful in other areas as well is the need, you felt the need to identify the stakeholders and the different people who might be part of your collaboration, and to really analyze who's doing what and what the sort of network is, where the gaps are. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. We have a project which is called Mind the Step, and we've been doing this since 2014. That's the fourth time we address that. It's on staircases, so pedestrian mobility and the pedestrian network and the staircases, how they relate to that, but also as public spaces. So not just a passage, but also a staying place. Some they have like plazas like potential, but usually people are afraid of passing by, especially at night. So because we were working with these, and we are also working with active mobility as a whole, as addressing it to public policy, open streets movement in São Paulo we are being involved to, we found the need to understand who else was doing that. We knew many people, we meet many people, and for working in a more efficient way and without overlapping, without leaving gaps that we think they're important, we proposed a research. It started as a research, now we call it a project. It's called Como Anda. It's Cidade Ativa together with Corrida Amiga. It's a Run Commuter group and institute now, with the sponsorship of the financial aid of Instituto Clima e Sociedade. And what we proposed was analyzing this context, who was doing what, so we can actually address better our work and see groups that work with advocacy, the ones who work with research or technical issues, and how we can work better as a network instead of hitting our heads in the same issues and competing without the need for that. So that's how the project Como Anda started. It's on, so we could actually work better in the things we already been doing.
So can you give us an example of how that works? Show us a little bit about how the tool works.
Yeah, sure. The work was done by, actually, I'll explain it first. We started mapping who was doing. So this is the Como Anda. It stands for how do you walk, but it's also like how do you do. So it's in Portuguese it has the two meanings. So through the inquiry we asked the organizations to answer, and these organizations, they could be governmental, collectives, really like grassroots, very formalized or not, but we had a range of them. Now we are with 178 organizations, I think. And through this inquiry we got a database, and this database we selected a few questions that were more interesting to everyone to get to know. All the data is open source, so you can go through the full data, but what we have is an interactive tool on the internet. Is easier and better include. It's even better to look at it, but you can filter by the date in which the organization started working. You can go through states. You can go through the focus. So if they're only focused on pedestrian mobility, or they work as urban design as a whole and address pedestrian mobility, their difficulties. If they were more on technical issues, on research, so you can filter and either select some qualities, some attributes, let's say, and find organizations that work in that specific area. Or you can, for instance, look for Cidade Ativa and see how do we work, what kinds of things we work with, or the problems we face. So this is an interactive tool. It's quite interesting to navigate and find your own network. We also worked with these on legislation. So what issues concerning policies also overlap? Like we have like nation, state, municipal, and not always they are aligned. They're usually not aligned. So for working with that, you have to understand that. We have a timeline where we identify the first big events or some policies that made a difference. And we are actually, this report is from 2016. So we are now running a second inquiry. Well, actually, with the database, we are running a deeper analysis on the network. So we're probably going to get that done by May or June. So understand which are the organizations that link better with partnerships to each other, and from that maybe enhancing the network. For now, we have, after this first analysis, we got an action plan that works on 3 axes. One is strengthening the organizations, because as you can see on the data we collected, most, or at least half of the organizations working with pedestrian mobility, they started working after 2012, 2013. So it's a big boon on these organizations. So they're all new, they're all struggling to survive in a very difficult financial moment in Brazil, politically and financial especially. And the second, so strengthening the organization is something important. The other thing is that people don't understand pedestrian mobility as a way of transport. So addressing that it is a way of transport in Brazil, like a third of the trips in São Paulo or in the whole country, they are made by foot only. So if you put transport, collective transport, transit, you get another third. And so that's 2/3 of the country that rely on their foot or their wheels to actually move around. And we don't think it as something that we actually have to address and to create awareness on the theme. So talking about that, and through interviews, through data, and the third one is actually, as we have a network, not very efficient and functional network, but a network, we have to strengthen this network and articulate this network. So that's the 3 axes: strengthening the organization so they can do their job better, talking about that, so creating awareness on pedestrian mobility, and also the question about articulating and engaging with all this organization, which also takes quite a lot of time.
That's one of the things that's come out in our discussions with a number of people here, that pedestrian movement, sidewalks, streets, those are all part of the public realm, part of public space, and a really important component of thinking about the problems of public space. And for example, with transport, even if you have transport systems, you still have to walk usually to the stop. And
Exactly.
so the quality of the public realm seems so important. I know we talked about this earlier, and your experience in convincing people of the importance of walking and biking, and not simply everybody get into a car. What's your work involved with there?
We create, for instance, in the staircase project, the Mind the Step, we create a space, a very lightweight intervention. We engage with people, we make kind of a party, we put some plays for the kids. So a big issue is that people, they don't experience, they never experience sometimes walking to school or going up that staircase, which is a block from their homes. Like we found on some of the staircases, people that they didn't knew there was a staircase there, and they lived a block away. So which means they had to take, they would probably take the car every day. So by putting some music on and talking to them and showing some examples, we got them to actually like the staircase. And so we put a bench, we put a picnic table, and they started maybe hanging out or for a little while, or go out with a dog and go around, instead of going around, passing through. So one of the works we do, let's say, is create a space where people can experience something that they are not, they didn't even think about. So that's one of the jobs. The other one is actually talk to the media and show data and show examples. So they also start thinking of that. You always talk about the sidewalks, how bad they are, but we never say why they're that, the policies behind that. In Brazil, most of the sidewalks, they are public, but the owner of the plotting, like the building in front of it, has to actually maintain it. So it's very hard if there is not a big policy behind that and money from the public to, if not to maintain, but to organize as the sidewalks and staircases as a network. So just addressing the infrastructural change, it's something important, very important, but we also have to work on people's behavior. So actually take them to a place where it's close, they can walk, they can enjoy, and maybe hang out. And maybe the next time they change their mind and they go by their own. So that's the two sides of like policies and infrastructure, but also trying to make people get out of their houses.
That does seem to be the challenge to, to bring some of the broader international lessons of advantages and tools and strategies and so on, but also to get very local and deal with the local challenges and the local tools. And then sometimes, as in the case of your network tool, maybe that's something that could be shared with other communities around the world. It seems to me that's very important to map out who's doing what and what are the relationships between them, and try to understand that complexity in a little bit simpler and more legible form.
Oh yeah, the challenges have to be addressed as a group. We don't have resources, human and financial resources, to everyone do everything. Everyone knows that. So we have to cooperate a little bit more. We have to collaborate and to not just go where the money is, but try to find evidence to make the money come to us and support us in what we do. It was interesting here at the World Urban Forum 9 that because we're just becoming partner with HealthBridge, they have similar examples of people doing similar things what we do. So open streets in Kathmandu, in Nepal, or in Bangladesh, or in Vietnam, and I didn't know, I wasn't aware of that. And they use similar strategies for engagement. They receive the same criticism from car owners and from politicians. And so there is a community which is addressing the same issues, using more or less the same tools. We can also exchange. We did like that. We collected data. For instance, in the open streets, we were in São Paolo. We were one of the partners, one of the organizations supporting that initiative, and the municipality embraced it like in a year time. We had a progressive mayor, and this was in 2015, and he used this excuse to open the new bicycle path in Avenida Paulista, which is one of the main financial center in the city, in the avenue. And he closed for cars, opened the streets, and it was full of people. And after 1 or 2 weekends doing that, they were collecting data from one side, but the associations around, living around, or the commercial associations, they were like, no, we don't want that. We're losing jobs, we're losing money, we are losing, it's too noisy. And they started asking for evidence, and the municipality didn't really have collected evidence. So we, civil society, organized ourselves and we collected this data, and we were like giving it to the municipality so that they could talk to the association, like a neighborhood association, and they didn't have data. They just had the same thoughts that, it's not gonna work. And then we said, okay, but there's no commerce on Sundays. Now it's starting to, they're starting to open again the restaurants on Sunday, because as a financial center, there were not so many people eating that there. So actually we could turn it the way around. And so civil society in São Paulo was very important in this issue. And now we had a government change. They maintained the open streets, but we are still part of a commission which monitors how they are doing. So from one, they expanded to 32. Now we have 20 open streets functioning at the same time. And the situation in Kathmandu, in Bangladesh, in Vietnam or India, they are very similar. So we can see that understanding others in this network is also very positive. Like we can have lots to share.
We had someone also sharing a very similar story about how the businesses protested the changes to the street layout, and after about 5 years or so, they were saying, no, we'll do more. We like this, you know. So it seems to me that's the key, is the snowball effect to getting successes, building on successes, and more happening. So this week we're at the World Urban Forum, and I wonder if you have any key takeaways, key conclusions, big challenges that we're all facing right now.
Yeah, I'll probably need a few weeks to digest all of that. It was very interesting to see different approaches to more urban planning, more in national scale or local scale. I was pretty much on the public spaces research and tools for doing that. Most of the sessions I attended were related to that. I went into some on the financing, but what I can grab from the ones I watched is that the civil society being part of this network. So you have governments that they have to implement, but sometimes they don't have the tools, or they don't have the data, or they don't have the will. So we have to work on probably these three things as civil society, organized or just like citizens. The civil society, the organized ones, providing this link to the actual population. So, I mean, we are not going to implement the new urban agenda if we don't work together with governments, with institutions that finance, advocating, and research, or if we don't put people to actually support us. Because in this case, for open streets, for instance, the civil society organized was against it. A part of it was against it, and a stronger part was in favor of, and also it was a more technical part of it. So for now we win, but if we lose, if we just leave it, we probably will be going backwards. I mean, it's always, you always have to be aware that if you don't keep doing your job, probably you have some backlash. So I think the collaborative approach to implementing the new urban agenda. For me, on the sessions I attended at least, it's the key word for implementing it.
Well, there's certainly a lot of work to do ahead, and you're certainly doing impressive work in São Paulo. So, Ramiro Levy, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, and hope to collaborate with you and put our network in contact with other parts of the world and share some experience. Thank you for the opportunity.